Butterflies, as I mentioned before, is a dance group, and so they do hip hop. They do also traditional dancing, which they're trying to reclaim. A lot of them didn't know about their own families or clans dances. And then here in Colombia, there's so many collectives here, so they're all doing different things, but there is a group in Bogota doing theater around their missing and murdered loved ones, which in contrast to the butterflies, where most of the missing murdered loved ones are women or girls. There's some men for sure, but in its majority is women. The majority of missing and murdered loved ones here are men, are their sons, their fathers, their brothers. And so they put together a play around their stories of what happened to them. And the first time the two groups met, they don't speak, the group here doesn't speak English and the group there doesn't speak Spanish, but there was something in the performance that they felt. For both groups, we've talked about this in great length, that it's that the loss of someone, and not just losing someone and what that means, but to lose their loved one to state-sanctioned violence and to have it be systematic is something that I think came across in the performances that happened there. And then the room for collaboration, which it hasn't happened in the forms of performing together because there is not enough resources in terms of funds and to be able to bring all groups together and work on something. But in terms of like solidarity, so when the strikes in Colombia happened last year, the butterflies were very much on top of like checking in with all of us who were in the streets. Just what can we do? What can we amplify? And so they were all posting on their Facebooks. They have a lot of media contacts in Vancouver, and so posting solidarity messages and just bringing awareness of what was happening. And then same thing here, when the inquiry was taking place, the groups here asking like how what's happening, is everything okay? The elder I mentioned, who was such a great support to me, she passed away last year. And the groups here were constantly checking, like, is everyone okay? What can we do? Can we have a healing circle, etc.? So that kind of solidarity, I think it's, I can't even remember what the question was anymore, but
no, that's great.
To get to the fact that people are collaborating together in such meaningful ways. All groups I work with, I think, would identify themselves as a feminist, and then they would also say, but not white feminists. And so there is a lot of resistance in siloing themselves from having conversations that are just about women, and then what happens to the men in their communities or other genders in their communities. And so I preface my answer with that, because there are definitely, I think, unique situations that women are living, and non-binary folks and gender non-conforming folks across all groups, that have to do with the direct results of how colonialism and patriarchy have like infiltrated communities and lives. And I think that was the beauty of that first meeting, when everyone was like talking about, for example, sexism within their communities and the things we don't usually talk about to other communities, because they tend to maybe reinforce stereotypes that are there about Black men, about Indigenous men. And so we're like, no, we're fighting on the race front, and then we'll keep this for later. And so that was the experience of a lot of the women who were there, who were like, we can't put it behind, but we don't have spaces to talk about this. So that was one time when everybody was like, yeah, we need to, like, that needs to go hand in hand to be able to fight against capitalism, against distraction, against conflict and war and violence in ways that centers women's realities, who all live it at different with like different in different ways, but in very similar ways too. Like we can almost see a blueprint of how governments enact a state-sanctioned violence in communities and how it affects women and how women are targeted at always at the forefront of the violence that's received in environmental movements, in Indigenous movements, in Black movements, both in Canada and in Colombia.